The single biggest problem in a narcissistic relationship, whether it's your mother or the person that you're dating or a brother or sister or friend, is the hope that they will change. And the problem is that we are so married to the fantasy that we chase the potential. When you say, let them, that is a profound act of love. And at the same time, you can live in the reality of who they actually are right now. You're not letting them do anything to you. You're letting them reveal exactly who they are through their behavior, and that's the power of letting them. And then for you to come back to your power and say, let me decide how much time and energy I pour into this relationship. And here's what we don't realize. You have a business partnership, and they want you to come to some meeting or come give a speech, and it just doesn't work, and they're disappointed. Isn't that a good thing? Doesn't that mean they want you there? So let them be disappointed. We're so terrified to be single. And the problem is that we are so married to the fantasy that we chase the potential. And you don't see the reality of the person that you're actually with. And the explaining away of behavior is the single biggest reason why you'll waste years of your life or months of your life with the wrong person. Because you're up here going, well, if they'd only lose some more weight or they'd be more motivated, then maybe. No, this is exactly who this person is. No human being's perfect, and we can all learn skills. And so whose responsibility is it to create the relationship that you deserve? See, I think it's your responsibility. And the way that you do it is you allow someone, you let them be who they are, and then you come back to yourself, and anything that's annoying you or frustrating you or that you're griping to your friends about, whether it's work or it's a friendship or your parents or whatever, that's the let me part. Let me either stop about this, because that's the only way that you know how you accept it, or let me sit down and be the emotionally mature one. So, of course, it stresses him out and pisses him off and annoys him, because there's a big difference between what you intend and the impact it has in another person. And this is really important. When you communicate something to someone, that it matters to you, and they don't do it, you have to let them. And here's why. Is this the right relationship? Do I want to be with somebody who I sit down and repeatedly share my feelings and my needs with, and then they do not do anything? And the behavior shows that I don't matter. And this is why it's important to understand where your control is, because what's ultimately going to happen is if you have an issue with somebody in your life, whether it's your parents or your boss or whatever, and you've addressed it in a very mature and loving way, and nothing has changed, it's likely not going to. And then it comes back to you. Let me choose. What do I deserve? But if you're in a relationship with somebody and you want to take it to the next level and they don't want to put a label on it, are those the table scraps you're going to take? If they're sneaking out early in the morning, like some stray cat, is that actually, seriously, is that the love you deserve? Because what we then do is we go up into our minds, and if only I can be closer to them, if only I can spend more time with them, maybe if I learn how to play golf. Now you're changing yourself because you refuse to let the person reveal who they are. And there are no mixed signals. You're either a priority or you're not, period. And, I think it's important that I recently heard some experts say, and I think it's a really important statistic to know, that 11% of people in long-term relationships have that sort of instant spark. 89% were the slow burn. And that's also important to know because over time, people reveal who they are too. And it's why people grow on you. There is something about let them that is a profound act of love. Because in my mind, when I think about love, I think love is two things. I think it's consideration, so having someone else in mind. Like literally, if you make a cup of coffee for somebody and you put in the oat milk, because that's what they like, that's an act of love because you have consideration. And the second part of love for me is admiration, which is the ability to see something in someone else that you admire. And long-term successful relationship requires two things. It requires two people who want it to work. And that's an important thing. Because if you look at any relationship that breaks up, whether it's divorce or a breakup, there is a moment looking back where at least one of the people
didn't want it to work.
Yeah. And the second component is that you're both willing to make it work. It's almost like you're always going to be on a seesaw with somebody in a long-term relationship. Ups, downs, balance. But neither one of you will get off the seesaw. That's what it takes, because if one of you gets off, the whole thing breaks. And so that's why it's really important to learn how to let someone be who they are, because I think it's a huge act of love. Sure. And when you let them be who they are, you're actually holding space for two things to be true. Because somebody can be deeply disappointed in you or something that you've done, and they can still love you. And a lot of us don't know that, but when you let someone be disappointed, and if you just take that example, because so many of us are motivated by guilt, or we don't want to let people down. If you have a business partnership and they want you to come to some meeting or come give a speech and it just doesn't work and they're disappointed, isn't that a good thing? Doesn't that mean they want you there? We think we've done something wrong. No, you've actually done something great, because you have a relationship where somebody wants you there. So let them be disappointed. But then do the second part, let me remind myself of my values. And I don't bend over backwards just to make sure other people aren't disappointed. I just let them be disappointed, and I remind myself that I need to act in a way and spend my time in a way that actually supports the things that are priorities for me. And if I value, for example, family, and this is another very important thing because so many people are motivated by guilt. I used to be deeply motivated by making sure that, oh my God, if I felt guilty because I'm working too much or didn't see my parents or whatever, and then I'd change everything and then I'd still feel guilty because it wasn't quite enough. Don't ever do something because you feel guilty. When you change your plans and you go home to see your parents because you feel guilty, you just made your parents the villain. And because you're making it a thing you have to do, if you let them be disappointed and then you come back to yourself and you say, okay, well, let me drop into my values. And for me, my dad's 80 this year, and I'm lucky if I got 10 more holidays with him. And so I don't make the time to see them because I want him to think I'm a good daughter. I make the time to see him because it makes me know I'm a good daughter, because I value it. And the other thing that I love about Let Them, especially in challenging political times, is there are very good people in your life that have political opinions that you just cannot explain. And it's a deeply personal issue for everybody around what crosses a line. But there is space when you say, let them, for someone else to have a belief that you don't understand, and for you to not be emotionally charged by it, and then for you to come back to your power and say, let me decide how much time and energy I pour into this relationship. Let me decide the role that family plays. Let me decide if I'm going to take the time to step in their shoes and try to understand how they have come to this belief. When somebody has a different opinion than you, or they tell you something you don't want to hear, they've scanned your brain. Your brain literally turns off the listening part when somebody is telling you something that you don't want to hear. And so by yelling at each other or arguing about things, or I don't understand how you could possibly, that doesn't do anything but create this silent distance between people. When you let people have their beliefs and then you remind yourself, let me decide what I value, and let me decide what energy I'm going to pour into what, and let me decide if I want to keep the space in this relationship open. We've all had the experience of hosting, right? And when you host, it's because you actually want to take care of everybody. You want to feel important. When people come up to your house and they're going to eat the meal you prepared, you really want them to enjoy it, right? And whether you put a little bit of care into it or you put a ton of care into it, I think it's safe to assume that whomever the host is They just want to feel like everybody appreciates the effort that they put in. Now, as you're going to somebody else's house, or you're going to the holidays at your family's, or you're going to a wedding, you already have expectations. And I think this is one of the things that I have learned the hard way, that going with the flow and understanding that all that the person that is hosting wants is to just feel like people appreciate the effort in. And here's what we don't realize. We don't realize that if you don't go with the flow as the guest, you unintentionally can come across as rude, disrespectful. You can make a host feel like no matter what they do, it's never enough. You can inadvertently make it seem like you're doing it better, or you would do it better, or they didn't do enough. And it creates this weird tension. You're just trying to help. You didn't mean to roll into someone else's house like a freight train and suddenly take over and cover every single counter space. But you know what that feels like to the host? Wait, what I planned wasn't good enough for you? And then guess what happens? We just inadvertently brought out the 8-year-old version of your sister or your dad or your mother. Because the kid part in there tried really hard. And they, just like every 8-year-old, wants to be noticed. They want to be appreciated. They want to be told you did a good job. And so what is the best thing that you and I can do? Well, first of all, it's to recognize the psychology of anybody hosting. That's just human nature, to want to feel appreciated. What's the best thing you can do? Go with the flow. Give yourself a reality check. Don't live in the fantasy and the expectation. Live in the reality. You're not pulling into a 5-star resort. You're in somebody's home. Here is your anchor tool when it comes to anything that's beneath your expectation, anything that you now want to control and do better. Here's what you're going to do. You have to be clear about your intentions before you walk in the door. Just ask yourself, why am I here? Why am I going to this event that is hosted by a family member? If the answer is, well, I'm here because I just want to be with my family. If that's your answer, you have won the lottery, because it means you don't need to fix anything. You don't need to control anything. You don't need to manage the 8-year-olds that show up in the big bodies and start tantruming, because you need to be clear about your intention. I'm just here to be with family, which means I'm going to go with the flow. I'm going to be kind. I'm going to be flexible. I'm going to say thank you. That's it. That's all you need to do. Venting doesn't work. And I get it. It feels like it helps, right? It doesn't. Venting isn't helping. Venting makes things worse. So what do? You call a friend. You pace around in the bedroom upstairs. You go for a walk with the dog. You then rehash every detail with your partner as you're on the walk. You vent. Can you believe it? We've only been, but it always happens like this. And doesn't it feel so good, right? Because it feels like you're releasing something, and it feels like you're right. But here's the thing. You're not releasing something. You're pouring gasoline on the fire. Venting doesn't release the emotion. It reloads it. See, I know that you've been told just blow off steam, but guess what? Science says that's complete BS. Why? Because every rant is a mental rep. You're not moving on. This is scary. Listen to this. You're not moving on. Your brain is memorizing your outrage. You are locking that anger into your nervous system. It makes it easier to get angry the next time. See, every time you go off about it and vent, you're reinforcing the loop. And let me say this, it is normal to want to vent. I have been one of the world's biggest venters, in fact. And once I read this research, I'm like, I'm never venting again. Because I can see the more you do it and the more you get stuck in this loop. Because you know that saying, misery loves company? Have you ever noticed that when you start venting about something, especially something family related, it's not fair, she's always the favorite, they don't treat the grandkids equally, you want the other person to get angry too. Now here's where it gets tricky. Because when you vent about him, even if you don't say it directly, your sister feels it. She feels the judgment. She picks up on the tension. And what happens next? She feels like you're against her person. And so the more she feels like you and the family are against him or her, the more she's going to cling to them. See, most people don't start distancing themselves from family because there's one big blowout. It's because there's 1,000 tiny little slights. What you want to do instead is stop the venting and just let them be with this person, and let this person be somebody that annoys you, and let them, and you keep your peace and you don't react because you want to keep your sister close. You don't want to push them to the person you're attacking, because then you're pushing your sister away. You don't have to fake it. Figure out your why. Why are you here? Are you here to change everybody? Are you here out of obligation? Or are you here because it's important to you to spend time with your family? Go with the flow, and you've already won.